My wife and I are moving into this family home. Anyone who doesn't belong here, get out now." When my husband said that, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. "Don't you guys know? My name is Amber. I'm a 27-year-old marketing executive. I've been working for the same company for 5 years since I graduated. I've been given a lot of responsibility now and lead a busy life. Every day is challenging, but I feel a sense of fulfillment. I have another reason to strive harder. That is my boyfriend Ted. He's also my colleague who works at the same office as me and is 1 year my senior. When I joined the company, he became my mentor, and that's how we started to get closer. At first, it was just a typical colleague relationship. Around the time I got used to my work, he started to show signs of being interested in me as a woman and began making advances. Well, maybe he was waiting for me to become independent. The truth is, I was secretly attracted to him. So I was thrilled when he confessed his feelings to me. By the time I turned 25, in my third year as a career woman, we officially started dating. We kept our relationship a secret from our colleagues. I was happy to see each other every day at work, and it was fun to go on dates after work or on weekends. It was delightful to have a good balance of work and private life. Our relationship was smooth sailing. Both of us were good at separating work and personal life, and we fulfilled our work responsibilities diligently. When both of us had a lot of work, we would stay late together and divide the tasks. I think we had a very good relationship in that sense. Then one day, someone at work found out that we were dating. It happened when we were walking together in the city on Valentine's Day. One of our coworkers saw us holding hands. Well, even without that, it wouldn't be surprising for people to assume we were dating since it was such a day. Although they teased us at first, everyone was supportive of us, saying we were a well-suited couple. It also helped that we both worked hard at our jobs without mixing our personal or professional lives. Since we produced good results, our superiors didn't say anything special about it. Thanks to that, we were able to continue our relationship smoothly. And then, after 2 years of dating, he finally proposed to me. "No matter how I envision my future, I always see you by my side. So I want you to walk through life with me. Will you marry me?" Yes. I was overjoyed by his wonderful proposal so much, so that I almost fainted with happiness. I spent some time gazing at the engagement ring and couldn't stop smiling. We immediately went to meet each other's parents. First, we headed to his parents' house. "Very nice to meet you. I'm Amber." "Wow, you're beautiful." "That's very lucky." "Oh, you're too nice." No, you don't have to be modest." "That's right, that's really lucky." "Hey, you guys are putting me down too much, don't you think?" His parents were very friendly, kind and funny. Their smiles never phased, and we had a pleasant time from start to finish. "Your parents are so nice." "I'm glad to hear you say so." "It's my turn now, isn't it?" "I'm nervous to meet your father." "He's also nice, so you don't need to be nervous." "Yeah, but I still do, you know." "Will he approve of our marriage?" "I've already decided to marry you, so it doesn't matter if he does or doesn't. Besides, he's not the kind of person who would interfere with his daughter's marriage based on his own opinion." "Well, That's good to hear. He seemed a little relieved but still quite nervous. Then a few days later, the day came for us to visit my parents. Did you sleep last night? I know you're teasing me, right? I couldn't sleep much. I knew it. While having that conversation, we walked a few minutes from the nearest station to my parents' house. Welcome, guys. My mom greeted us at the front. It's nice to meet you. I'm Ted, the fiancé of Amber. Oh dear, you seem so nervous. Yeah, he is. When my mom and I started laughing, he joined in and seemed to ease his tension a little. As we headed to the living room, my dad was waiting for us. Ted introduced himself politely, just as nervous as before. My dad welcomed him with a genuine smile. Nice meeting you too. I'm new. Seeing him return the greeting warmly, Ted seemed to relax a bit. From there, we carried out our conversations cheerfully. Ted, please take good care of our daughter. Yes, of course I will. They shook hands firmly. I watched them with a smile, feeling delighted. Afterward, we proceeded with the preparations for the wedding. During that time, we had dinner with both families. There was a cheerful exchange between the parents from both sides. Amidst that, there was another person from my side of the family who was meeting Ted and his parents for the first time. Hi, I'm Sarah. Nice to finally meet you. You're a pretty good-looking guy. That was how my sister introduced herself to Ted. She's 5 years younger than me and was a 22-year-old college student then. Since she was still in the student mindset, she tended to be a little hyped up. Ted had great people skills, so he easily clicked with her energy. Really? It's the first time someone said that to me. You're good with flattery. You're being too modest. You seem very nice, Ted. You found a great guy, Amber. I know. She had an outgoing personality and a light-hearted attitude. I thought she would have gotten along well with someone like Ted, who was flexible. Since he was an only child and had no siblings, I wanted him to enjoy having a sister too. The dinner with the two families went without a hitch and ended pleasantly. A few months later, Ted and I held our wedding. We had many discussions and put a lot of effort into the planning, so we were quite pleased that it turned out exactly as we had hoped. Our colleagues and friends seemed genuinely happy for us, which made us feel truly blessed. Right after the wedding, we went on our honeymoon, and upon our return, we started our newlywed life. I was exalted to live with my beloved husband. Every morning when I woke up, he was by my side, and he was there when I went to sleep as well. Moreover, since we worked at the same company, we commuted together. It was like a dream to be with him all the time. As we were both busy, we shared the household chores. He liked cooking and was better than me. Even with simple dishes like mac and cheese or grilled salmon, he added a little extra touch, making them incredibly delicious. I felt fortunate to have a husband who was not only an excellent cook but also brought me joy. We collaborated and handled chores while fulfilling our respective jobs. Our colleagues praised us as an admirable couple. When we were not working, we mainly indulged in our shared hobby of watching movies. We loved foreign films and enjoyed 2 or 3 a day. We watched a considerable number of movies throughout the year. What shall we watch next weekend? I often browse movie review websites during my lunch break. Our married life was filled with simple happiness. However, around 3 years into our marriage, something happened that changed everything. It was on a weekend. When the doorbell rang, I thought it was a delivery, but the person standing outside the door was someone unexpected. It's been a long time, Amber. Sarah, why are you suddenly here? Can you let me stay here tonight? Huh? She showed up out of the blue. Not only that, she was asking to stay the night. I mean, it's a bit too sudden, don't you think? Please, I have nowhere else to go. What do you mean? I couldn't understand the meaning behind her words. And just then, Ted emerged from the living room. What's going on? Oh, Sarah, long time no see. Hey, Ted. Why are you guys talking at the door? Come inside. He then took her luggage and led her into the living room. You're so kind. I was hoping to end the conversation at the entrance. I was certain that if she came inside, she would have definitely stayed the night. Sarah, tell me the rest of what you were saying just now. What do you mean you have nowhere else to go? After graduating from university, she got a job and started living on her own. She should have had a place to go back to. I couldn't afford to pay the rent. How come? What about your job? It didn't work out, so I quit. You had finally landed a job after struggling, and it lasted for 3 years, right? You could have continued for a bit longer. Oh, I quit that job a long time ago. I was working part-time. Hold on. How long did you stay at your full-time job? Until a bit before Thanksgiving. That's only about a month. Why didn't you tell me something so important? Don't get upset like that, will you? When she went to our parents first and told them everything, she was fiercely scolded by Dad, then kicked out. Of course he'll be angry. How selfish are you? Okay, let's just calm down. She must have been going through a lot and made that choice. It's unfair to just get angry at her. Ted tried to take a neutral position, but that would have only made her take advantage. You're so cool. No one has ever stood up for me. Thanks. Well, it's not like... Please, Dad, let me stay here tonight. She pleaded him with Bambi eyes. Then, without hesitation, he said, Sure, why not? All I could do was exhale deeply in resignation. Yay, thank you. Exhilarated, she went to put her luggage in the guest room without asking. Hon, you're spoiling her. You think so? But we're siblings, so we have to help each other. He didn't seem to grasp my concerns. I knew she would have never wanted to leave our place. My intuition was right, and she stayed for a while. You're an amazing cook, Ted. Really? Thank you. Ted never asked her to leave, and they always seemed to enjoy their meals together. Even when I told her to leave soon, she wouldn't listen. When I spoke to Ted about it, he said it was lively and fun. I had no choice but to talk to my parents. They were so mad that they immediately came to our house. Sarah was taken aback by their sudden visit. Dad gave her a harsh scolding, which made her finally reflect on her actions. She decided to leave soon, and at last I was going to be free from her. But then came the drama. I had just returned home from a 3-day business trip. When I entered the house, Sarah's jackets were gone from the closet. There was no luggage in the guest room either. I thought she must have left while I was away. I went to the dining room and found a letter on the table. I expected it to be from her. I picked it up and was absolutely stunned when I read the contents. "I'm sorry, Amber. Sarah's leaving, so I decided to go with her." You've got to be kidding me. I couldn't help but let out a small cry. I rushed to Ted's closet only to find it empty. My sister and my husband had eloped together. I called and messaged both of them several times to no avail. I crumbled down to the floor. They had been having an affair under my roof. He had chosen Sarah over me. All of those were like a kick in my gut, and I didn't think I could recover from the immense pain. I called my parents and asked them to come over right away, and also sought advice from the police. However, I was told that I couldn't file a missing persons report, and I lost hope of locating them. I found out that Ted had resigned from his job while I was on a business trip. And just like that, he disappeared from the office. Soon after, I received the divorce papers in the mail. I desperately tried to find them, but it seemed impossible. I reluctantly signed the papers and submitted them, pretending to be a complete stranger to my husband. I hoped that I'd never have to go through such a painful experience again. People around me sympathized with me, understanding how cruel Ted had been. Work became the only way to distract myself from the pain. I focused solely on my work from then on. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. I was still working as hard as ever. Then one day, unexpected visitors showed up at my house. "Hi, Amber. We're back." We had nowhere else to go, so we came here. Unbelievably, Ted and Sarah appeared after 10 years. I wondered what their intentions were. The house they came to was my parents'. They shamelessly showed up without a trace of embarrassment. I took a deep breath. It's pointless for you to have come. They refused to listen to me and tried to rely on my parents. Dad will forgive us after 10 years, don't you think? Ted's parents are still mad, so we couldn't go to their house. But my parents will be different. We'll move into this house. Anyone who doesn't belong here, get out now. When Ted said that, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Don't you guys know? Mom and Dad have already retired to the countryside. So this house is in my name now. No way! It's not fair that you live here all by yourself. Who said I'm alone? You're not? Just then, my current husband emerged from the living room. Hey guys, I'm her husband. Just to let you know, I'm a police officer. Police? Not only surprised by the unexpected presence of my husband, but they were flustered upon learning about his profession. I'm happy to see you doing well after all this time. Right, I'm relieved to see you well. Saying that, the two of them started backing away. Stop! If you guys want to live here, you can. Really? You're so sweet. It appeared that their simple-minded nature hadn't changed as they paused and delighted in my words. But only if you pay for the upcoming full renovation. That's impossible, obviously. Don't give us a false hope. You two had an affair, left the house on your own, and now you're back, yet you dare to say such a presumptuous things? I have suffered a lot because of your betrayal. I was that bitterness that fueled my determination, and now I become the VP at the headquarters. Seriously, you've risen that high? I kept working hard after you were gone. What about you guys? You quit your jobs, eloped, and now you're back. It's because you don't have any money, isn't it? Well, when confronted with the truth, they both hung their heads looking down. After they eloped, they worked part-time to ends meet, but it was getting insufficient. Unable to pay the rent, they were finally evicted from the apartment. I'll hook you up with a job if you want. Are you mocking us again? Enough already. Well then, there's a living job available, but... When I mentioned it, they eagerly took the bait. Really? Come on, tell us more. It appeared they were truly desperate. Alright, let me contact them. I made a phone call right away. They want you guys to come now. I'll drive, so let's go. Yes. My husband and I got into the car and took them to the location. It was a farmhouse where my parents and uncle lived. Could this be... Yep, Sarah. You, what are you doing showing your face here now? And you, I won't forgive you for betraying Amber. When we arrived, Dad approached the two of them in a rage. They cowered in terror in his menacing look. My husband and I removed their belongings from the trunk and go back inside the car. What are you doing, Amber? Where are you going? We have no business here, so we are going home. Good luck with the farm work. Wait. We left them behind. They are now disciplined by my parents and uncle, enduring daily lectures and forced to do farm work. I hear they are mentally and physically exhausted with lifeless expressions on their faces. I truly think it serves them right. On the other hand, I am happily living with my husband. I intend to continue working through life with my reliable partner.
My husband laced my food with sleeping medication because he and my father-in-law wanted me to produce an heir.
I was having a meal at my in-laws' house like usual. However, in the middle of such a meal, I was struck by an incredible sleepiness and plopped down on the dining table. In my dazed consciousness, I heard my husband's laughter, and
"It finally worked. Let's take her to the mattress."
I tried to resist, but my consciousness faded away, and when I came to, I was lying on a hospital bed. My mother-in-law, who was attending to me, told me a shocking truth. I'm Kristen, a 26-year-old office worker. My husband Archie is also a 26-year-old office worker. We met as colleagues at work, and our similar hobbies and views on love brought us closer together, and we got married after 2 years of dating. I was 25 years old. During our relationship, Archie and I enjoyed snowboarding, which was a common hobby of ours, and we often went on trips, and Archie would make plans for us on those trips. I was having trouble fitting in at work at the time, but Archie comforted me about it, and thanks to him, who was such a strong ally, I was mentally supported and gradually began to fit in at work. Archie was the second son, but since my brother-in-law, the eldest son, had found a job far away from home after we got married, my parents-in-law, especially my father-in-law, started urging me to have a grandchild as soon as possible. However, we had discussed and decided not to have children until our savings reaches a target amount, and I asked Archie several times to tell him that, but his urging was there every time we saw each other. My parents-in-law's house was less than an hour's drive away, and once or twice a month, we would visit them and have dinner there. My in-laws are what you would call old-fashioned people, and my father-in-law always believed in a patriarchal household. My mother-in-law was a quiet woman who stood quietly behind my father-in-law and took care of him. However, from my point of view, His belief was often excessive, and when something happened that he didn't like, he would be harsh with my mother-in-law, even when it had nothing to do with her. And sometimes he would yell at her unreasonably. I felt incredibly uncomfortable, but Archie did not care about this, and I had to live with the atmosphere, knowing that it was not something I, as his wife, was allowed to interfere with. On the other hand, my father was a loving husband, and he took care of my mother, and she was very grateful to him. I was quite surprised at the gap between my own parents and my parents-in-law's image of a married couple. The main cause of my unease was the fact that Archie had no doubts about his parents' relationship. On the contrary, he took advantage of my father-in-law's unreasonableness toward my mother-in-law.
Mom, you're really slow.
In response, my mother-in-law responded with a sad smile and said, "I'm sorry." I was so pained to see my mother-in-law apologizing with a sad smile. On our way home from my parents-in-law's house, I said to Archie, "Why do you blame your mother like that when it's not her fault?"
Dad worked hard to support our family, but Mom is a stay-at-home mom, and instead of giving Dad a break, she often irritates him, so she deserved to be called out like that.
He said something so outrageous. By irritating him, do you mean because she didn't put the condiment in front of him on the table? And not knowing the whereabouts of his lost glasses? He's not a child. Archie wrinkled his brow.
A stay-at-home mom is the one who takes care of the house, so that the husband can live at home without any problems. You work, so I don't expect you to do that much. But when we have kids, I will leave taking care of the house to you.
Huh? What's that supposed to mean? Does that mean that you will not do your share of taking care of the household at all? That's impossible. When I responded with strong words like that, Archie immediately became a little upset.
I'm not saying that, but...
Archie is more uptight after dealing with my father-in-law, and we often have this kind of exchange on the way home from my in-law's house. I was not a quiet woman like my mother-in-law, and neither my father-in-law's nor Archie's attitude was at all acceptable. So every time I would answer back, and the conversation would end. However, Archie gradually became more and more influenced by my father-in-law, and began to make greater demands of me, and I would argue against it.
But you will eventually stop working, right? You have to prepare for that now.
Can you live on your income alone and not put up with anything from your children? No, right? Even if we both work, we might have to put up with a few things depending on how many kids we have.
By the time the kids are born, my income will be higher too, right?
Will you tell me what to do when that happens then? Don't tell me to do all the housework now, or to visit my in-laws alone, or be a big jerk. Archie's face turned bright red at what I said, but he seems to be at a loss for words, so he cut off the conversation as if he was trying to escape. After a while, my father-in-law contacted me again.
Kristen, I heard you rebelled against Archie again, didn't you?
Rebelled? I only disagreed with him. We were just discussing our marriage.
You are not going to produce an heir, and you are talking back to Archie, the head of your household. When are you going to have children?
You talk about heirs, but I'm not going to let them take over your house even if they are born. Archie is always talking to me like you, but how can you meddle in your grown son's family and call me every time?
You? Who are you talking to?
My forceful rebuttal left him speechless, as it did to Archie, and in the end, he said,
Enough!
He hung up the phone childishly. I was still thinking naively how I could convince Archie, who had been consumed by my father-in-law's patriarchal mindset. However, My thoughts were not enough.
Since my dad is eager to have an heir, let's start having children, even though it is not our plan.
I froze for a moment, not understanding what he said. No, my child is not going to be the heir of my in-laws unless he wants to be. Our savings is not yet enough, and you haven't even gotten a raise. How are you going to make a living while raising a child once I got pregnant? Archie sighs deeply in response to my answer.
My parents and your parents will help us, won't they? Of course, it's better to have children while you are young.
Archie tries to force me to proceed with the conversation, and as expected, I was disgusted and rejected him. This led to an awkward relationship between us. I was working and earning enough money to support myself on my own, so the idea of divorcing Archie began to flicker in my mind at this time. I tried many times to discuss the divorce with Archie, but Archie at that time put his father-in-law's words before my opinion, and even if I tried to discuss the divorce with him, I could not get him to agree. When I tried to discuss with Archie, he would repeat my father-in-law's words. It was just a meaningless dialogue with him. However, we started making more visits to our in-laws, and although I really did not like them, I was following Archie with a mysterious sense of obligation that if I refused him, we might not be able to function as a couple at all. My father-in-law's sarcasm got worse every time I saw him, but on the other hand, his pressure on my mother-in-laws eased up, and I managed to keep my spirits up, thinking that this was a relief at least.
Christine, when are you going to become a decent wife who respects her husband? You are a really unfit wife, rebelling not only against the patriarch of the family, has no heir, but also against her parents-in-law. You should really be thankful that Archie is not divorcing you.
I let my father-in-law's sarcasm go by saying yes, yes. But I felt that the food tasted worse than usual because of his sarcasm, and I was a little reluctant to eat. I could see that my mother-in-law was looking at me with a worried expression, but I did not pay any attention to this and continued to eat. However, as time went by, I felt my body was getting heavier, and my consciousness was getting dimmer. The next moment I realized that it was a sleepiness, but I couldn't stand it anymore, and I fell down on the table, my whole body suddenly losing its strength. In my foggy consciousness, I desperately tried to get myself up, fearing that my father-in-law would scold me again if I didn't get up soon. But I heard Archie's laughter and my father-in-law's.
Finally it worked. Let's carry her to the mattress. That's right. Go make an heir quickly.
I felt a chill deep inside me from their conversation, but unable to resist it, I fell into a deep sleep. When I awoke, my body was on the bed in the hospital room. In my slowly becoming conscious, I noticed my mother-in-law standing by the bed, crying and apologizing to me. "Kristen, thank God! You're awake! I'm so sorry! It's my fault! My fault!" I couldn't understand what was going on as my mother-in-law was sobbing, but the nurses and doctors who heard her voice came to the hospital room and explained the situation on her behalf. I woke up the day after I ate the meal, and it was laced with sleeping pills. I was told that the sleeping pills were prescribed to my father-in-law at the hospital, but he and Archie had mixed them in my food. "Police!" I was so surprised and terrified by what the doctor had told me that I screamed out to call the police. But as if waiting for my words, the police came into the hospital room.
Your mother-in-law called us, and we investigated this case.
The police officer interviewed me and told me about my father-in-law and Archie. He told me that they had been brought to the same hospital in a serious condition, and were now hospitalized under observation and absolute bed rest. As I was getting confused by the police words, he gave me more details. It seems that Archie and my father-in-law, frustrated by my reluctance to have children, had planned to put me to sleep and then proceed. They used the sleeping pills that had been prescribed for him. The reason why I felt the food tasted bad was not because of the sarcasm of my father-in-law or Archie, but because the food was actually laced with sleeping pills. My mother-in-law, who knew about this plan, tried to persuade them to stop it, but they did not listen to her at all. She tried to tell me directly, but they prevented her from doing so. So she contacted my brother-in-law, who lived far away, and asked him to help her. On that day, he was supposed to arrive at my parents-in-law's house before us, but he was delayed due to traffic. I remember the worried look on my mother-in-law's face as she looked at me, and it made sense. But why are they both in the hospital? Grant arrived just in time to see Archie and Hank holding you, and pulled you away from them. But they both got mad at him and grabbed at him. But Grant, he wrestles and does judo. In other words, they were so angry at him for saving me, and they tried to attack him, but got injured so badly that they had to be hospitalized. However, it seems that Archie had brought out a kitchen knife against him at that time, and it was a close call between self-defense and excessive self-defense. My mother-in-law kept crying during this time, holding my hand. "I'm so sorry." But I was able to wake up in the hospital because of my mother-in-law's courage. Thanks to you, I was able to escape from their plan. Thank you very much. I then waited for my health to improve, contacted the company, and started working on my divorce from Archie. Again, my mother-in-law told me, "I can only do this much, but..." She gave me not only the recordings of the conversations between Archie and my father-in-law planning this matter, but also the recording of the sarcasm he had been hurling at me. "Why?" "I've been talking to my eldest son about it for a while. He told me to keep the recordings in case something happens." I thanked my mother-in-law for her kindness, and at the same time, I asked her, "You're not going to get a divorce?" "Actually, I got divorced and decided to live with my eldest son. I had resigned myself to the fact that I would have no money to live on after the divorce, but Grant said he would take care of it." My mother-in-law looked a little relieved and told me about the future. I was worried about my mother-in-law, even though we were no longer related, so I was relieved by her words. With the evidence I had received from my mother-in-law, and in consultation with my lawyer, I filed a claim for compensation, a police report, and a restraining order against Archie and my father-in-law, and left the rest to my lawyer, explaining the situation to the company and informing them of my resignation. After hearing my report, the company dismissed Archie on disciplinary grounds and proposed to transfer me to a distant branch. I gratefully accepted and was able to leave my hometown. Incidentally, since my parents had passed away early, I had no family home. This was perceived as a weakness, which encouraged Archie's and my father-in-law's attitude. Archie and my father-in-law were arrested and sentenced to prison. Naturally, his company was told about the incident and dismissed him from his job, even though he was about to retire. My mother-in-law also filed a claim for alimony against my father-in-law on the advice of my brother-in-law, and so she also got divorced. They tried to borrow money from their relatives, but they did not cooperate with them, so they borrowed money from a shady financial institution to pay the alimony. The sanctions against my brother-in-law were also justified by her lawyer, and he ended up without any charges. Archie and my father-in-law lost their house and livelihood, and they tried to rely on my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law, but they were rejected. And now they are living together, blaming each other and living in fear of debt collectors every day. Furthermore, my father-in-law is still suffering from the after effects of the injury he sustained, and Archie has been obliged to take care of him, which has been physically and mentally quite overwhelming for him. I have been contacted several times through my lawyer, but I refused to take any action without asking him what he wanted. So the only information I have about what happened after that is what my mother-in-law, who I have been in contact with occasionally, has told me. As for me, I have begun to get used to the life in a new place, and although I suffered from a trauma so severe that I could not eat anything but my own homemade food at the beginning of the divorce, the symptoms have subsided and I can now eat meals served by restaurants. I can't eat the food that my colleagues sometimes give me, but they all know the situation. Don't worry about it. Surrounded by such warm people, I have recovered mentally and physically, and I'm now enjoying my life alone. My mother-in-law and I have maintained a good relationship even after the divorce, and we sometimes have dinner between our residents. And I have tried many times to thank my brother-in-law for all he has done for me.
It was the worst incident that happened because I ran away from my parents' house and left them alone because I was too lazy to deal with them. So I would rather pay alimony to you too.
But I never let him do that for me. I can't forget everything that happened, but I'm looking forward to the future and hope to recover from it in time.
My mother-in-law poured freezing water on me while I was sleeping. I couldn't take her harassment anymore, so I told my husband, then she is in hell now.
I woke up with a start when I felt a cold sensation all over my body, with a rustling sound. I realized that everything from my hair to my upper body was soaking wet. Above me stood my mother-in-law. What in the world did you do? What am I doing? Why are you still sleeping? It's still dark outside. Shut up. Don't be a lazy wife and sleep around. You should be doing all the housework too. I understand. With that, my mother-in-law left the room. My body was rattling and shaking from being dust with water in the middle of winter. I can't believe it. How could she go to such lengths just because she didn't like me? I absolutely cannot forgive her. If it comes to this, I'll do it back to you too. After confirming that my mother-in-law had gone to bed, I immediately began to take action. My name is Patricia. I am 28 years old. I just got married a week ago and I am a newlywed. I married my husband Matthew after 2 years of dating. We work at different companies, but our jobs are the same, so we get home at the same time. We share the household chores. This dinner is delicious. My husband praised me with a smile after taking a bite of my dinner. Seeing him like that, I couldn't help but smile as well. Really? I'm glad. I've been working hard since this morning to prepare it. I wanted you to enjoy it. You're a really good cook. Everything is so good. I'm glad to hear you say that. And it makes it all worthwhile when people are happy. I am so lucky to be married to such a wonderful wife. Stop it. You make me blush. I know that these compliments are a bit exaggerated. Even so, I was honestly happy to hear my husband say that. Then one day, my husband went to work on his day off. While I was at home relaxing by myself, the intercom rang. Who is it? I opened the front door and there is my mother-in-law. Stella, I said, and my mother-in-law came in. You opened the door so slow. How long are you going to make your mother-in-law wait? I'm sorry. But why today? I just happened to call Matthew this morning, and he told me he was working on his day off. So, I'm here to educate you. Educate me? I didn't understand what my mother-in-law meant, but I had a bad feeling about it. What kind of an education is she talking about? Besides, the atmosphere was totally different from the last time I saw her. I've met her several times so far, including to greeting her on my wedding day. I have only had a cheerful and kind impression of my mother-in-law. It is absolutely ridiculous for her to come all the way here when Matthew is not here. However, I couldn't just push her away. I had no choice but to let her into the living room and offer her a cup of coffee. My mother-in-law took a sip and frowned. What is this? How could you serve such bad coffee? I'm sorry, but this is my parents' favorite coffee. I don't care about that. It's not normal that you can't even serve your mother-in-law a decent cup of coffee. I'm sorry. I'll make you another cup in a minute. It's fine. No matter how many times you make it, it'll probably taste bad anyway. I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say to my mother-in-law, who was clearly in a bad mood. Why did she suddenly come to visit me? Why is she being so harsh with me? When I went to my parents-in-law's house when I first started dating my husband, my mother-in-law did not behave like this. She smiled and said she was happy that she was getting a daughter. However, the mother-in-law I see in front of me now bears no resemblance to her. I half panicked and didn't know how to react. As I stood there, my mother-in-law glared at me. Why are you standing there for? What about cleaning? Did you do the laundry? Is it done? Laundry is done. You haven't done the cleaning yet. Matthew is working hard, so should you. Do it quickly. I'll watch you. I can't clean the house when you're here, Stella. I can take care of the house later. Didn't you hear me? I am here to educate you. So get on with it. Yes, ma'am. I immediately took out a vacuum cleaner and started sweeping the floor. My mother-in-law was in no mood to argue with me. She also complained about every single thing I did, so I was in no mood to clean the floor. You are not cleaning properly. That's why you can't take care of the house. The way you hang the laundry is not good. You need to redo it. Don't rely on the dishwasher to wash the dishes. Wash them yourself. She would say things like this and make me re-dry clothes or re-wash the dishes. What could be more wasteful than this? It felt like an incredibly long day, even though it was my day off. That night, I decided to tell my husband about my mother-in-law. Today, your mother... As I was about to say this, my husband opened his mouth happily. My mom told me about it. She told me that you two had tea together today. What? Tea? She said she had a lot of fun at our house. And you had a lot of small talk. Thanks for being so friendly with Mom. No, that's not... Your mother was upset with me a lot for the way I did the housework. She did? My husband looks at me with a confused face. When I explained everything that had happened today, he looked incredulous. He immediately called his mother. Hello, Mom? What's going on? What are you talking about? Why did you say that to Patricia? Anyway, don't come here when I'm not around anymore. Bye. My husband seemed a little angry and hung up the phone. Apparently, he believed what I had said. I was happy that my husband was on my side, but I was also worried. I wondered how my mother-in-law would react to his warning. If she really feels sorry for herself and felt bad about it, then something similar would never happen again. However, if she was upset by this, there might be a worse kind of wife-baiting awaiting me. I hoped it was the former, but unfortunately, the result was the latter. My mother-in-law never visited our house, but she sent me harassing messages on a daily basis. Of course, I thought about talking to my husband about it, but the message said, "If you tell on Matthew, I'll make him divorce you." I was so scared that I could not confide in my husband. I was at least relieved that she did not visit our house. This time, my mother-in-law called me to her home. Pretending to be reconciled, I told Matthew that I wanted to go see my mother-in-law. She's probably trying to get me to come to her house as a last resort, since she is banned from our house. I received frequent messages from my mother-in-law, and Matthew also seemed to receive invitations from his mother. Each time he would tell me, "It's my mom again. She's persistent. I told her we're not going." "Matthew, I don't mind. I don't mind going." "But my mom." I was surprised at the first, but I want to have a good relationship with my mother-in-law. She's inviting me, so I should go. "If that's what you want, then I'm fine with it." Matthew is on my side, but he still wants his mother and wife to get along with each other. Thinking it was for Matthew's sake, I agreed. Thus, we went to my parents-in-law's house. It was about 5 months after my mother-in-law's unannounced visit. When we arrived at my parents-in-law's house, my mother-in-law greeted my husband with a big smile on her face. "Matthew, welcome home. We've been expecting you." "I'm telling you, Mom, don't say anything strange to Patricia." "I won't say anything. I feel bad about what happened. I just want Patricia to be a good wife. That's all I wanted. Anyway, you'd better moderate your behavior. I only came home today because Patricia said yes." I know. Thank you for coming too, Patricia." She was smiling with a fresh smile that I could not imagine from the mother-in-law I had met before. It was as if she was my mother-in-law when I first met her. I had been fooled by her smile at first. I thought to myself bitterly. While I was at my mother-in-law's house, I tried not to spoil her good mood, so I don't offend her. Unlucky for us, snow is in the forecast for the evening and night tonight. Considering we'll be driving home, I'll probably be home early. Just a few more hours of patience. I told myself that over and over again as I spent my time at my parents-in-law's house. Sure enough, all of my mother-in-law's attention was on my husband. I didn't have anything to say to her. Instead, my mother-in-law was talking to Matthew happily. We were supposed to have an early dinner and go home. However, my mother-in-law's conversation drags on, and dinner started late. As we were finishing dinner, my mother-in-law said, "I'm sorry, Matthew, that the cake I served you for dessert had alcohol in it." "Alcohol?" "Yes, you didn't notice? It's very strong." "No way. I use it all the time because it smells so good. So I put it in the food today out of habit." "Then I guess I shouldn't drive." "Yes. Besides, it's already starting to snow." I looked outside, and it is indeed starting to snow. It doesn't matter if there was alcohol in the cake or not. The tires were not studdless, so it would have been dangerous to go home once it started snowing anyway. "Seriously?" My husband was shocked and slumped his shoulders. "I'm sorry, Patricia." He tells me apologetically. I shook my head. My husband had done nothing wrong. We ended up staying at my in-laws' house. My husband stayed in his old room, and I stayed in the guest room. To tell the truth, I would feel safer in the same room with my husband, but my mother-in-law insisted repeatedly, so we slept in different rooms. My husband seemed to agree with my mother-in-law about this, and apologetically said to me, "My room is too small. Besides, the bed is a single." I don't mind it at all. "No, it's my fault that we're still here. And the bed for guests is cleaner and bigger. I just want you to have a good night's sleep." "Okay, if you insist, Matthew." "I'm sorry about today. We'll leave first thing in the morning." "Okay, thanks." I took a shower and I went to bed to prepare for tomorrow. In the morning, I would be able to go home immediately. I was already relieved. A few hours later, I woke up with a start when I felt a cold sensation all over my body. I realized that my hair and upper body were soaking wet. Above me stood my mother-in-law. "What in the world did you do?" "What am I doing? Why are you still sleeping?" "It's still dark outside. Shut up. Don't be a lazy wife and sleep around. You should be doing all the housework too. Understood? Why are you doing this, Stella? Isn't it obvious? It's because I don't like you. What do you think I let you sleep alone for? You will only make Matthew angry if you do this. You're so annoying. If you keep talking back to me, I'm going to make him divorce you. That's between husband and wife. Anyway, get up and do the housework. And put away the beddings in this room. Don't let Matthew find out about this. You understood? With these words, my mother-in-law left the room. She probably thinks I will do whatever she says, as I have always done. My body was rattling and shaken from being dosed with water in the middle of winter. Immeasurable anger welled up, and veins rose to the surface of my forehead. No longer did I feel fear for my mother-in-law, only disgust. I can't believe it. I can't believe she would do such length just because she doesn't like me. I absolutely can't forgive her. I'm gonna do something about it. Rubbing my shaking body, I wrapped myself in a blanket for the time being. When I saw that my mother-in-law had fallen asleep, I got up and left the room. I headed for my husband's room. Matthew, I'm sorry. Wake up. I shook him, and he woke up with a start. He was surprised to see me soaking wet. Patricia? What happened to you? You're all wet. I'm sorry to startle you. Your mother did this to me. What? My mom? How could she do this? To tell you the truth, I suppressed the tremor in my body and confided in him what had happened so far. I told him that I had pretended to make up with my mother-in-law as she had asked me to. She made me sleep alone in the guest room because she wanted to harass me. I told him that my mother-in-law was still pecking on me and was planning to get us to divorce. I cried towards the end, but I tried to keep myself together. Then, my husband silently got up and pulled me by the hand and headed for the bathroom. He got a warm shower started and said, "Warm yourself up," and smiled gently. The shower warmed me to the core. As I took a breath and thought about the future, I heard my mother-in-law scream from upstairs. I hurried out of the bathroom, put on my underwear and clothes, and hurried upstairs. My father-in-law had just arrived and was standing in front of my mother-in-law. What was that scream? In my mother-in-law's room was my husband holding a bucket in his hand. My mother-in-law was lying on the bed, soaking wet and shaking. She looked at my husband in disbelief and protested. "Matthew, what did you do?" And my husband responded coldly. "I just did what you did to Patricia." "What are you talking about? Don't say strange things." "I didn't do that." "Then why was Patricia so wet?" "Well, she deliberately got herself wet to make it my fault." "Cut the crap. Patricia would never do something dirty like that." The place fell silent at the sound of my husband's yelling, which I had never heard before. My parents-in-law had probably never seen my husband this angry before. "What's going on?" When my father-in-law asked this, my husband quietly opened his mouth. "Mom has been picking on Patricia. She made her sleep alone in the guest room today, so that she could harass her." "Oh, come on. That's not true, is it?" "It's true. Patricia was shaking when Mom poured water on her. She finally told me everything she had been holding back, so I decided to do the same thing to her." "Matthew, I will never forgive Mom. I will never forgive her. I don't need a mother who does such terrible things." My husband said, and pulled my hand, saying that he would call a cab and we would go home. At that moment, my mother-in-law called out my name. Her face scrunched up. "Patricia, wait." "What?" "I'm sorry for everything I've done. I apologize. I'm sorry. Matthew is my beloved son. Perhaps my mother-in-law is the type of person who cannot let go of her children. She cared too much about her beloved son, and she saw me, her daughter-in-law, as an enemy. That's why I continued to harass me. But that was none of my business. Whatever the reason, her actions were unforgivable. I glared at my mother-in-law and declared clearly, I don't care about your reasons. You hurt me a lot. Don't think I can forgive you so easily. I will never forgive you. Don't say that. I am truly sorry. Sorry? I don't need that kind of verbal remorse. I tried to compromise with you at one time, but you were the one who betrayed me and ruined it, right? I have no intention of seeing you again. Goodbye. Wait, Patricia. Matthew? Wait. Ignoring my mother-in-law's voice, my husband and I called a cab and went straight home. After that, my mother-in-law contacted me several times to apologize, but I ignored all of her calls. My husband said that he had already blocked his mother's contact information. According to my father-in-law, my mother-in-law was quite shocked that Matthew had broken off the relationship. He said that she never leaves her room now. She has been mumbling his name and regretting her past actions. My father-in-law also said that he would consider the future when the time was right. Either way, we were thinking of moving out too, so I won't be seeing my mother-in-law anymore. I could never have solved this case alone. My husband was on my side, and thanks to him, I am back to my happy life. Matthew, thank you so much. You believed in me. What are you talking about? It's natural to trust your wife, isn't it? Thank you. Thank you too. I chose the right person to marry. I want to continue to enjoy life with my loving husband.
My husband left me lying on the floor with a high fever of 40 degrees. What happened next changed our lives forever.
The pure white wedding dress looks great. My daughter smiling beautifully with bright red lips next to the groom, who was moved to tears. Looking at her profile, I felt from the bottom of my heart that my choice at that time was not wrong. My name is Martha. I am 35 years old, working part-time and struggling with housework and child rearing. My daughter Lana is 5 years old and attends preschool. She's a strong girl who likes to go to the little children's class and take care of them. She is a very caring girl. My son Raphael is 3 years old. He is an energetic and active boy, but still loves his mommy and is very spoiled. I am happy to have such two lovely children, but there is one thing I failed to do. I made one mistake in choosing my life partner, my husband.
I'm going fishing tomorrow.
What? Late on a Friday night, my husband comes home smelling of alcohol. I was astonished when he said that, as if it were a matter of course. Wait a minute. You promised to take the kids to the zoo tomorrow.
My coworker said the tide is going to be great tomorrow. I've already booked the boat.
Oh no. The kids were looking forward to it.
Well, tell the kids to look forward to my big catch because Daddy's going to catch it.
Without paying any attention to my protests, my husband began to check his fishing gear. He showed no sign of regret for breaking his promise to the children. I don't know how many times he has betrayed me. I could not help but be disgusted beyond anger. Alvin, my husband of 5 years, is always like this. He puts his work and hobbies before his family. Of course, he never takes care of the children or housework. He only takes care of the children on days when he is in a good mood. He makes promises to the children to make them happy, but then breaks them for his own reasons. If you ask him to take care of the children, he complains that all of his colleagues' wives do it all by themselves. He does what he wants, and my husband is a perfect example of a selfish firstborn son. I wonder if I will have to live with such a selfish person for the rest of my life. I wonder that every day. But he still takes his job seriously and gets paid a good salary. He doesn't keep his promises, but he is not violent towards his children. My friends around me say that men will always be children. Since they say that, I have given up on him. Then one day, my daughter suddenly developed a fever of 102 degrees Fahrenheit and had to miss preschool. We rushed to the hospital and found out that it was the flu. I thought I would give her something to eat before going home and giving her medicine. However, there was nothing in the fridge that a sick person could eat, and I didn't think I could go shopping with my daughter who had a high fever. While I was looking for something she could eat, "Our daughter has the flu, so please pick up some jelly or fruit on your way home." I texted my husband on his cell phone, but when my husband came home in the evening, all he had in his hand was his commuter bag. "Did you get the food I asked for?"
Oh, I forgot. It can't be helped, I had a very long meeting today.
Without a sign of apology, my husband quickly changed into his room clothes and peeked into our daughter's room.
Daddy's home. You've got the flu, huh? Poor little thing.
He talks to her in the manner of a kind father who worries about his child. I sighed in a way that my husband wouldn't notice. "If you're really worried about her, at least buy her something to eat. I'll go get some jelly, so you watch the kids."
Yeah.
Despite my uneasiness of what he said, I hurriedly drove away for my daughter. When I returned home after buying my daughter's favorite food, I saw an astonished sight. My son was cuddling up to my daughter, who was coughing and sleeping, and reading her a picture book. "Hey, I told you to watch the kids. Lana could get Raphael sick if they're in the same room." I protested to my husband, who was lying on the living room sofa watching TV. He glared at me with a grim look on his face.
Shut up. I'm tired from work. It's your fault for not stocking up on food for times like this.
Maybe so, but... "Mommy!" I heard my daughter's voice, as if our arguing had woken her up.
Look, she's calling you.
I had so many things I wanted to say to my husband, but I couldn't ignore my daughter who was suffering. "Mommy, welcome home. I was reading to her because she was in pain." "Well, thank you, Raphael." I laughed, not wanting to ruin my son's kindness by getting angry. I was laughing without effort while I was taking her temperature and feeding her jello. My husband was giggling while watching TV. As expected, just as my daughter was getting better, my son came down with a fever. Even when he saw my son coughing bitterly in the morning, my husband did not care.
"Poor thing,"
he would say. He does not come home early because he is worried about his son, and he goes out drinking instead and returns in the morning. He has not a single word of sympathy for his wife, who is lying on her stomach next to his son, sleeping with a bright red face. I wondered if there was any point in staying married to this man, watching him sleep comfortably, smelling of alcohol and snoring loudly. These words kept coming back to my mind. When my son's fever had gone down, I finally came down with a fever. I knew I had to go to the hospital. I was too nauseous and lethargic to move as much as I wanted to, and the next thing I knew, it was evening. The fever had risen to nearly 104 degrees Fahrenheit. My daughter was unable to go to preschool. She came to check on me several times while playing with her brother. "Mommy, are you okay? Do you want some water?" "Thanks, Lana. I'm sorry, Mommy can't make lunch." "It's okay. I ate bread with Raphael for lunch." What a good big sister. I felt sorry for my daughter and was moved by her kindness. Then my husband finally came home.
Geez, what a dirty room. You've been home all day. What have you been doing?
I didn't have the energy to talk back to the man who complained about his wife, who clearly was not feeling well. "I'm sorry, I have a fever."
What the hell are you doing? You're so pathetic for a mother. What's for dinner?
What? You're kidding, right? I can't cook. I can't even stand up.
You've got to be strong and get up. My company won't let me take off just because I have a fever.
I had no choice but to stand up after listening to my husband's ridiculous demands. But then my eyes swayed and I slammed into the door with all my might. I groaned in pain and sickness, and my husband looked down at me as if he was staring at something dirty.
Enough. I'm going to the bar.
Wait a minute. We need to feed the kids.
I'm tired and you're not even going to prepare food for your husband when he gets home. And you're asking me to make food for the kids?
Wait. I desperately grabbed the hem of my husband's pants, but he shook me off without hesitation and walked out of the house. Mommy, are you okay? My daughter rubbed my back anxiously as I collapsed in the hallway. Alana, I'm sorry. I need to call your grandmother. But my mother said there was a musical today that she was looking forward to. I feel bad for calling her at this hour. Oh, who can I return to? I need to call an adult. I talk to my daughter as if I'm mumbling in a daze. Mommy! Mommy! I was unconscious before I knew it. When I woke up, I saw a blank ceiling in front of me that I did not recognize. As I gazed at it blankly, Martha! I heard a familiar voice calling my name. I moved my head to see my mother and my children sitting with tears in their eyes. Mom! I'm so happy. I'm so happy. My mother covered her face with her hands to hide her tears. Mommy! My children clung to my body. Alana, Raphael! It seems we are in a hospital. After I lost consciousness, my daughter called her grandmother in tears. She said that she had rushed to the house in a panic because of her unusual call and found me and my crying children lying in the hallway. I was rushed to the hospital where I was told that I had been asleep for a whole day and that I had contracted pneumonia from the flu, but that I was in a good health. Alana, thank you. You saved Mommy's life. When I patted her on the head, she cried even more. She must have been so scared because her mother collapsed in front of her eyes. Feeling sorry, I cried a little too. After a while, my mother-in-law with an ogre-like face and my husband with a pouty face appeared in the hospital room. Apparently, my daughter had asked my mother-in-law for help as well. And my husband, who left me with a high fever and went to a bar, was scolded by his mother. Martha, my son has really done something terrible. I'm sorry.
That's not true. Martha asked me to go out for dinner because she couldn't cook due to a fever. Right, Martha? My husband winked at me as if he wanted me to go along with him while he was telling outrageous lies. I was horrified that he could only think of his own self-preservation when his wife was in this situation. As I was about to open my mouth to argue with him, my daughter interrupted me and shouted, Daddy, you liar! What?
You stepped over Mommy asking for help and went out drinking! My mother and mother-in-law looked at my husband with a puzzled look at my daughter's revelation. Of course, my husband was in a panic.
I didn't step over you.
So, you are sure you didn't do anything wrong in abandoning Martha when she asked for help? My mother-in-law glared at my husband, who had dug his own grave. My daughter continued to speak the truth. You're always like that, Dad. When I have a fever, or Raphael has a fever, you just watch TV and laugh. He even goes fishing when he promised to take us to the zoo. He promised to take us to dinner, but then he goes out drinking.
I'm tired from work. And I've got to work too.
Mom works too. But Mom always cooks a delicious dinner, feeds me Jell-O when I have a fever, and plays with me a lot on her days off.
Mommy doesn't make a lot of money, so that's why she can do that kind of thing. Look, next time I'll use the money I earn to buy you that game you've all been wanting. As my husband's disgusting behavior was revealed one after another, my mother-in-law and mother's eyes grew colder and colder.
Unable to bear it, my husband tried to put our daughter in a good mood by offering her money and other things, but she resisted him violently. I don't want it. I don't want games. I don't want daddy. I don't want a daddy who bullies mommy. My husband screamed at her refusal. I don't want games or toys. I just want mommy to be happy. My son clings desperately to the bed, mimicking my daughter who hugs me with tears streaming down her face. I'll stop asking for toys and eat my broccoli. I'll do my best even if daddy's not here.
Raphael, not you too.
Even his son rejected him, and my husband's complexion went even paler. He is not so foolish as to make a flowery statement that my children need a male parent after being told this much. I held the children close to me as if I were ready to make my decision. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye to Daddy. My husband shouted in protest.
But I've given you money so you could live without inconvenience.
That's true. Thank you for all you have done. But from now on, I will raise our children.
You sure about that? I'm not giving you the house. I built that house with my money. It's all right. You three can come live with me.
Mom! My mother cut off my husband's desperate resistance. My mother-in-law also patted Lana on the head and smiled. Grandma is on Lana, Raphael, and your mommy's side. You can always count on me.
Mom, you're taking their side too? But I'm your son.
You're not my son anymore. My husband lets out a quiet scream. I guess I've made a mistake in raising my son. You look just like your father that I divorced, and it makes me want to vomit. I knew my mother-in-law was divorced, but I had no idea it was for the same reasons as mine. I had seen that, and this man is really too much of a jerk. After being stared at with contempt by the woman, my husband had reached his limit.
You've got to be kidding me. I don't care if you cry and moan about it later.
He ran out of the hospital room saying something that a villain would say. Later, after my health recovered, my husband and I divorced. My husband, perhaps with a sense of pride, brought me the divorce papers he had prepared himself, so I made him promise to pay child support and divide the property among us, and signed the papers. Of course, my husband said,
You'll regret this,
and left in defeat. After returning to my single life, I took my mother up on her offer to stay with her. The small company my father owned was just looking to hire someone, and I was to join them. My kids helped out a lot too, just as they said. But they seemed anxious about losing their mother again, and at night, the three of us would hold hands and snuggle together as we slept. I thought that the loss of my husband, their male parent, would cause some problems and inconveniences, but it didn't. In fact, I was no longer disappointed by my husband's expectations or treated unreasonably, and my children and I enjoyed our new life with a refreshed feeling. One day, while those days were passing, I received a call from my ex-husband. I picked up the phone, wondering what was going on, and heard him breathing very hard.
Hello, can I talk to you for a minute? Sorry I sound like this.
I don't mind, but what's this about?
Well, I've got a fever.
Okay.
I have a headache and a sore throat.
Okay.
And I've got the chills.
Okay. Take care of yourself.
Wait a minute.
I was about to quickly hang up the phone, but my ex-husband hurried to stop me. What is it?
I told you I'm in pain. Do you understand? Your husband is suffering.
What? Husband? Are you kidding me? I'm not your wife. Bye-bye. I tried to say it in a way that my crazy ex-husband could understand. I thought, oh well, and tried to hang up the call again, but my husband kept talking frantically.
Wait. Married couples don't have a relationship so flimsy that you can say goodbye with a document like that.
Huh? That's what a married couple is, right? It's a relationship that can be joined or severed with a sheet of paper. It's important to build trust. You are the one who destroyed that. First of all, when I had a fever of 104 degrees, you said that working people have to work even if they have a fever, right? I will say those words back to you.
I understand. I'm sorry about that time. Please, help me. If I go down, you'll be in trouble too.
No, not even a little bit. We don't care one bit if you, a stranger, fall down or get sick. My ex-husband choked up as if he was truly surprised. I'm surprised too, really.
You really don't care about me, do you?
Of course not. Didn't you get divorced because you don't care about us either?
No, I didn't. I just wanted you to realize how great a father I am.
I'm sorry to hear that. I realize that nothing would bother me or my children if you're not here. I'm never coming back to you again.
No.
6 months after our separation, my ex-husband finally understood the meaning of divorce. Even my 6-year-old daughter understands what it means, but he is a misunderstood man with a brain less than 6 years old. He seems to be like a burnout Ash on the other end of the phone, but without mercy this time. I really hung up the phone. I think he'll be fine if he's got the energy to call me, but in case he really is not doing well, I'll feel bad, so I'll call my mother-in-law just in case. When my mother-in-law reluctantly visited my ex-husband's house after receiving my call, she found him wrapped in a duvet and crying inconsolably. His fever was 99.5 degrees Fahrenheit. How could a man who was so fussy about a slight fever swear at his wife for having a temperature of 104 degrees Fahrenheit? My mother-in-law was also disgusted with his behavior and left quickly. After that, my ex-husband tried his best to find a new wife, but he could not find a woman who would accept a selfish man over 40 years old. My mother-in-law also said that my ex-husband, who grew up to be a man like her ex, has become physiologically unacceptable to her, and she will never let him in the house. He was so dependent on me that he couldn't do the housework. His life was in shambles. He drank and ate heavily due to stress, and his health checkup results showed that he was in need of a lot of tests. Whenever he became ill and felt lonely, he would write or call me to complain about the misery of his life and the pain his body was going through, but of course, I ignored it all. A few years later, when I decided to remarry, I offered to withdraw child support and changed all of my contact information. 18 years later...
Lana, congrats on the marriage.
Dad, you're crying too much. Lana laughs in amazement as my husband weeps profusely in front of our daughter's wedding. I got remarried a few years after the divorce. Working in the field of education, my new husband has a heart as wide as the sea, and he loved my children from the bottom of his heart, even though they were not related to him by blood. Even though I am a female parent, I can say that he devoted himself to our daughter, especially when she was in her teens. He definitely melted the heart of my daughter, who had lost faith in men because of my ex-husband. Perhaps that's why she chose the current groom, a passionate man who would weep along with my husband. I smiled a little at the sight of the two big men crying before the ceremony even started and took my daughter's hand. Lana, be happy. My daughter giggles at my words, her beautiful face scrunched up in a smile. What are you talking about, Mom? I have always been happy. I've been happy ever since I was born your child. Lana.
Mom, I'll make sure to make Lana happy.
The tears that were about to spill out unintentionally were pulled back by the sobs and tears of the groom, who was sobbing even harder than before. It was a mess. But a wedding like this is not so bad. I don't even know what I'm saying. The girl who wipes the groom's tears with a sullen look on her face is a fully grown woman, and there's no trace of her childhood. But her kind and caring nature has not changed since she was a child. I'm glad I got to be your mother. Congratulations on your marriage.